Hello everyone. In this video session, we are going to talk about the poem At the Back of Progress by Taslima Nasreen. Let us first discuss about the poetess. Taslima Nasreen is a renowned Bangladeshi writer. Initially, Taslima chose medicine as her profession. She could not continue her profession of medicine for a very long time, and she was more interested in writing, so she resigned her job and focused on writing. In course of time, she turned out to be a well-known feminist as well as a newspaper columnist. In majority of her works, Taslima emphasizes on the equality and liberty of women. She fought passionately to wipe away the injustices that prevailed in her society. At this stage, the Muslim fundamentalists issued an order to kill her for her profanity or her irreligious notions. Consequently, Taslima went into hiding and sought shelter in other parts of the world. Since 1994, she has been in exile. Taslima Nasreen rose to global fame owing to her feminist views and her criticism of Islam in particular and of religion in general. Presently, Taslima works to build support for various social causes like secular humanism, freedom of thought, equality for women, and human rights by publishing, lecturing, and campaigning. Let us now discuss the poem written by her, At the Back of Progress. In the poem At the Back of Progress, Taslima Nasreen hits back at the denial of justice to women. Even the title of the poem is indicative of the double standards prevailing in her society. The poem objectifies the condition of women in a patriarchal society which victimizes women. The poetess in the poem exposes the hidden face of development, the modern development, and points out the attitude of men and their dubious stands on morality, their double standards on morality. The poetess' criticism and objection is that the man's treatment of women is same in every patriarchal society. The power structure in most of the society is controlled by hegemony, means political or cultural dominance or authority over others. This hegemony does not allow to live freely, especially women are made victims to this system of the society. In this poem, the poetess draws the images of some male characters. The poem begins with a high-ranking boss who sits in his air-conditioned office, the man who has had various sex adventures during his time of youth. He looks at women lustfully, especially when he goes to the parties, and this man also satisfies his lust with different women in five-star hotels. Such kind of men have the authority to give out character references to people, and the poetess questions the authority of such references from a man who himself is morally corrupt. Following this first example of the man, the poetess proceeds to describe an employee who outwardly seems genuinely civilized and sophisticated, one who is always engaged in a discussion of films, politics, art, and literature. This man speaks gently in the office, but at home he shouts at his wife, abuses her, and even beats her. Following this second example, there is the last example finally. The poetess talks about another man who always keeps a lighter in his pocket and get tips for his services. This man divorced his first wife for her sterility and divorced his second wife for giving birth to a girl. He even divorced third time for not bringing any dowry. He divorced his third wife for not bringing sufficient amount of dowry, and presently he beats his fourth wife for very trivial things. In this poem, let us discuss critically. The poetess expresses the misery of women through these three examples taken in the various parts of the society. In a very painful manner, she brings to limelight the physical and psychological cruelty which are inflicted to women. In fact, Taslima Nasreen is bold enough to portray the deplorable condition of women in her own country, Bangladesh. She very successfully draws the attention of the readers that women lead a very pathetic life in her society. These women are subjected to violence, they are humiliated for bringing in less dowry, and even such women are treated brutally like doormats for giving birth to daughters. So, women suffer both physically as well as mentally. Although the law and order grants equal rights to men and women, but the society bifurcates them as two units. In the society and in the family, men are considered to be superior and women are mere tools or objects. Women are abused and bruised mercilessly, and the reason is the dominance of men. In this way, the poem At the Back of Progress is indirectly a prayer, a plea for the society to safeguard the dignity and eminence of women. The central idea of the poem is indicated in the title of the poem itself. The title is highly sarcastic and evidently mirrors the poet's thoughts. She portrays that the treatment given to women at home, uh, mm, the subordination of women to men, the exploitation of women, their suppression, these all evils do not figure in the index of economic progress and development. Such issues of women are irrelevant to the so called progress that the society is heading towards. Nasreen reflects that since ages past, women have been silent sufferers. In order to understand the poem critically and fully, let us discuss the text of the poem line by line. At the Back of Progress by Taslima Nasreen. Study of the text. The fellow who sits in the air conditioned office is the one who, in his youth, raped a dozen or so young girls and at cocktail parties is secretly stricken with lust, fastening his eyes on lovely's belly buttons. In five-star hotels, he tries out his different sexual tastes with a variety of women, then returns home and beats his wife because of an over iron handkerchief or shirt collar. The poem At the Back of Progress by Taslima Nasreen begins with the description of a high ranking boss who is shown as sitting in his air conditioned office. He's portrayed as the person who has made sexual relations with many girls or women in his time of youth. Of course, some of these women must have been raped. It means he might have used women sexually against their wishes because this man is a powerful man because of his prosperity and on the power of his wealth. He has seduced many women in his past life. The same man in cocktail or business parties looks lustfully at the beautiful women secretly. He's a lustful person and he looks at women, of course, with the prospect of having sexual relationship. He stares with his eyes on the belly buttons and other body parts of women, invites and takes these women to five-star hotels, and there he satisfies his sexual desire with different kinds of women. Having done this immoral deed, this rich, prosperous businessman returns to his home and beats his wife over small and trivial things, the things like over ironed handkerchief or shirt collar. In the opening lines of the poem, the poetess satires on dual faces of a person who is a successful business person. But behind his success, there is immorality and degraded character. This man in hotels enjoys with other women while at home he beats his own wife. His dual behavior to women shows that society in which we are living has degraded morally. This rich man represents all upper class people of the society. Let us study the text further. In his office, Mr. Big puffs on a cigarette, shuffles through files, rings for his employee, shouts, demands tea, drinks, and returns to writing people's character references. This prosperous businessman is portrayed further in these lines that this man in his office, who is addressed as Mr. Big, puffs on a cigarette, means he smokes in his office, which indicates his careless attitude even in public. He puffs a cigarette and then becomes busy in the files. He rings to call his employees in his office. He shouts at them when there is something wrong or carelessness in their work. He orders for the tea. He drinks wine or anything else and then comments on the characters of his employees. This man has the authority to give out character reference to people, and the poet questions the sense of such references from a man who himself is morally corrupt. In these lines, the poetess presents the irony that prevails in our society. In our society, there are so many people who are authorized to define others' characters, but in reality, they themselves are symbol of characterlessness. Mr. Big, presented in these lines, is the symbol of modern politicians and rich business people who write character references on others, but they themselves are immoral or morally corrupt. Let us study the text further. His employee speaks in such a low voice that no one would ever suspect how at home he also raises his voice, is wild to his family, but with his buddies on the porch or at a movie, indulges in loud harangues on politics, art, literature, and how some female, his mother, grandmother, or great grandmother, committed suicide. Bidding goodbye to his buddies, he returns home, beats his wife over a bar of soap or the baby's pneumonia. In these lines, the poetess describes an employee who outwardly seems generally civilized and sophisticated. When he is in public, when he is among his colleagues or friends, he's always polite in his office. He's he seems so gentle that nobody could even suspect that this fellow is a vile person. Means he is a person of bad character at home and may possibly shout on anybody. But in reality, he does so. He attempts to portray himself as intellectual kind of person, as he is always engaged in a discussion of films, politics, art, and literature, and on the complex issues also, that how someone's grandmother or mother committed suicide. This man speaks gently in his office, but when he goes home, he shouts at his own wife, abuses his wife, and beats her. He quarrels with his wife over small and trivial issues such as the cake of soap or pneumonia that happened to their child. Thus, the poetess shows the dual and degraded mentality of men. The man that is discussed in these lines is pretentious in nature. He keeps on changing his attitude here and there. He is humble and submissive towards his boss and respectable to people around him when he is at his workplace. He has very fine image in the public that no one would suspect the real hidden character of this man. because this man, when he reaches home, he humiliates his wife in a routine. Of course, the women, unable to bear this enslavement, get upset and get shattered. Even this regular ill treatment towards women uh, takes them to take the drastic steps like committing suicide. Through the description of this employee, the poetess indicates towards the character of modern man. In modern times, people have dual character. Their thinking towards women is suppressive and exploitative. Yet, in public, they present themselves as an idealist person. In the last part of the poem, there is another example. Next day, at work, he pleasantly brings the tea, keeps a lighter in his pocket, receives a tip of couple of taka, and tells no one that he divorced his first wife for her sterility, his second for giving birth to a daughter, his third for not bringing a sufficient dowry. Now, with his wife number four, he again has someone to beat over a green chili or a handful of rice. In this last part of the poem, the poetess talks about another man who always keeps a lighter in his pocket, which is indicative of his servile nature. And in exchange of his service, he gets some amount of money, taka, which is Bangladeshi currency, as a tip for his service. The poetess tells about the reality of this person when she tells about the past personal life of this man, that this man divorced his first wife for her sterility, means she was unable to bear children. This man divorced his second wife because she gave birth to a girl child. This man divorced for the third time to the woman because she did not bring the amount of dowry that he expected. And in his present married life with his fourth wife, he does not have good relationship either. He beats his fourth wife for trivial things as green chilies or handful of rice, etc., etc. Means on small issues, he beats her. In the last lines, the poem brings out the ugliness of the Muslim society, means the society in which she herself was brought up. In the Muslim society, especially in Bangladesh, divorce is very common issue. Man can marry any number of times. Through this poem, the poetess reveals the culture that prevailed among the Muslims in Bangladesh. When men try to break up the conjugal relations, women are really helpless. Means women cannot do anything if men gets ready to divorce his wife. In such society, men usually fail to realize the love and concern that a woman has towards their families. In this stanza, the poetess shows that the man changes women as if he changes the clothes. She attempts to establish the point that the modern society has developed mechanically and economically, but morally, it has degraded to a dangerous level. So, this last person is the symbol of a common person of the society. So, here ends the study of the text of this poem at the back of progress by Taslima Nasreen. Thank you.